You ever been fired by your wife and her father at the same dinner table? I have. It was a Wednesday night, downtown Chicago, private room at Osteria Quattro. Candlelight, fake smiles, and linen napkins folded like origami. They called it a family dinner. Claire, my wife, booked the table herself. Told me it was to celebrate the future. Everyone was there. Her dad, Richard Kingsley, CEO of Kingsley Freight and Logistics. Her mom, cold as ever, sipping Chardonnay like it owed her rent. Her brother Gavin, the trust fund clown. And then there was him, Leo Santoro, introduced as a new strategic consultant. I wasn't stupid. I'd seen Claire's text weeks ago. Can't wait to see you again. But I stayed quiet. Watching. Calculating. We were halfway through appetizers when Richard tapped his glass. Everyone looked up. Mark, you've been part of this family and this company a long time. 12 years, isn't it? 13, I said, setting down my fork. Right. Well, after careful consideration, Claire and I have decided it's time for a change in leadership. He slid a crisp envelope across the table. My name printed on the front. Claire didn't even flinch. She just nodded like this was an HR formality. This isn't personal, she said. You've been comfortable for too long, and I need someone who pushes me. Leo smiled across the table. Smug. Like this was a job interview he just aced. I looked at the envelope. Didn't touch it. Then I looked around the table. Her whole family just watching, waiting for a meltdown. I raised my glass. Actually, I couldn't agree more. Claire blinked. Excuse me. I stood up slowly, buttoned my jacket. To endings, I said. They make room for better beginnings. Then I walked out. Calm. Silent. No rage. No begging. Because what they didn't know. That morning, before brunch mimosas and betrayal, I'd already submitted documents to HR. And by the time dessert was served, I owned the next move. 12 years. That's how long I gave to Kingsley Freight and Logistics. 10-hour days, 6-day weeks. Built their West Coast operation from a mess of clipboards and half-broken trailers into a $40 million pipeline. No scandals. No excuses. Just results. They hired me back when the company was bleeding clients. Richard Kingsley, Claire's dad, needed someone cheap and dependable. I was both. Married his daughter 6 months later. Not because of the job. Because I loved her. At the time, I thought she loved me too. They liked having me around. The quiet guy who fixed problems and didn't ask questions. I was one of them, as long as I kept delivering and didn't outshine the golden kids, Gavin with his fake executive role, and Claire with her event planner title that meant schedules brunches and pretends to work. Truth is, I ran more of that company than anyone not named Kingsley. Supply chain, vendor contracts, warehouse optimization, I built it from the inside. Quietly. Efficiently. And I didn't complain when Claire started pulling away. Said she was focused on personal growth. Started traveling more. Women's conferences, she said. Spa retreats, supposedly. Until one day, I found her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. Not snooping. Not even tempted until it buzzed. Leo. Still thinking about your dress last night. Miss you already. Claire. Let's make it official soon. He's dragging his feet, but I think my dad's ready. She wasn't just cheating. She was strategizing. Like I was an obstacle to be removed. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because in that moment, I realized something. They weren't just preparing to replace me. They thought I'd go quietly. They had no idea who I really was. After that message from Leo, I started watching Claire differently. She wasn't careless. She was calculated. Every conversation turned shallow. Every compliment felt rehearsed. I'd come home from 12 hours on-site at the Joliet warehouse and she'd barely look up from her laptop. You smell like diesel again, she said once. Not joking. Just annoyed. 2 weeks before that dinner ambush, she stopped sleeping in the same bed. Claimed it was a back issue and that the guest bed felt firmer. What she didn't know was I checked that guest bed when she left for yoga. No wrinkles. Not a dent in the pillow. She was staying somewhere else. I tracked the mileage on her car. She wasn't going to yoga. She was driving across town to a condo building in River North. Leo's building. She didn't even try to cover it. Left perfume on the passenger seat. Her blouse tossed over the armrest once, still with the dry cleaning tag. She thought I wouldn't notice. She thought I wouldn't do anything. But here's what she didn't know. I'd already started pulling our bank statements. All of them. Separate accounts, shared ones, even that emergency fund she set up last year. I found 4 payments to a consulting firm tied to Leo. Front company. Probably helping him look legitimate in front of Richard. So now I knew. She was cheating. Her dad knew. They were planning to make Leo the new me. And they were going to fire me like I was lucky to be included in the family at all. That would have broken a younger man. Would have sent him spiraling. Not me. Because while Claire was sneaking out the back door, I was already inside the vault. My employment contract? Full severance if fired without cause. And I'd just finished assembling a dossier, dates, figures, proof of my work, and a paper trail that would make any lawyer grin. They thought I was blind. But I'd been watching everything. And now, I was preparing my exit. Not like a loser. Like a thief in reverse, leaving with more than I came in with. Richard started making his move the following Monday. I could see it in the little things, first the subtle stuff, then the obvious. He cut my department's travel budget in half without warning. Claimed it was streamlining for Q4. I smiled and nodded. He didn't know I'd already made all my supplier visits 2 weeks prior. The new contracts were signed, sealed, and logged under my name. A few days later, I got bumped from the leadership meeting calendar. No invite. No notification. Just found out when my assistant, Marcy, apologized for accidentally removing me from the Outlook list. Not her fault. Orders from above. Then came the real slap, my office. They moved me out of my glass-walled space near the boardroom to a converted storage unit on the first floor. No windows, no AC, right next to the freight elevator. When I walked in that first morning, Gavin, the do-nothing brother-in-law, was already sitting at my old desk, trying to figure out how to open a quarterly report PDF. I leaned in and whispered, "Click View, up top. Then enable editing." He blinked like I just solved a Rubik's Cube. This wasn't restructuring. It was character assassination. They wanted to make me look irrelevant before they tossed me aside. Death by humiliation. But here's the part they didn't account for. I let it happen. Every single move they made. I logged it. Documented it. Saved timestamps. Photographed every office memo, every HR email, every budget change. Built a digital folder so bulletproof a first-year law student could win a settlement off it. And while they thought they were phasing me out, I was phasing in something else entirely. I'd reached out to Northridge Freight, a smaller competitor in Milwaukee. The VP there, Dev Patel, had been trying to poach me for years. I sent him a message. "Still looking to expand into Chicago?" His reply came 10 minutes later. "Only if I've got a war general to lead it." We met the next day in a dive bar off I-94. No suits. No PowerPoints. Just a notepad, a beer, and my list of vendor contacts, employee loyalties, and niche contracts that Kingsley's ignored for years. He looked at the paper like it was gold. "Can you bring this?" "Every bit of it," I said. "What's your timeline?" I finished my drink. Let them serve the last nail. Then we move. By the end of that week, I had a new job offer in my inbox with equity. I didn't sign it yet. Not until Richard handed me that termination envelope. Because once he did, every restriction in my contract burned up like dry leaves. They thought they were cutting deadweight. I was cutting the brake lines. By now, they'd iced me out of the boardroom, budget meetings, and press releases, but they still hadn't fired me. That's because Richard didn't want to fight. He wanted a quiet exit. One where I'd tuck tail, resign, and maybe thank him for all the opportunities. One where I left with no severance, no leverage, and no story to tell. But I wasn't playing that game. While they plotted, I built. My laptop at home had 3 encrypted folders. Folder A, my original employment contract, including the clause they forgot, 2 years severance if terminated without cause. Folder B, screenshots of every budget I balanced, every efficiency improvement I logged, every win that came directly from my department, stamped, dated, verifiable. Folder C, the burner. That's the one that held what Claire and Leo never thought I'd find. Back when Claire upgraded her iPad, she left the old one in the guest bedroom, still linked to her cloud. I powered it on, waited for the autosync, and there it was, a full message thread with Leo. Weeks of texts, plans, slander. One message read, "Dad says he's going to push Mark out after Q3. Once that's done, he wants you on board immediately. Big shakeup coming." Another, "He's getting clingy. Might suspect something. I'll play cold till it's official." She sent that the same week I was moved to the basement office. And then this gem from Leo. "Just make sure he signs the NDA before walking. Last thing we need is him running his mouth." That told me everything. They were setting me up to walk away quietly. So I did the opposite. That morning, I printed the contract, highlighted the severance clause, mailed a certified copy to my lawyer, just in case things went missing. Then I wrote a resignation letter. But I didn't send it. I dated it, signed it, and stored it in my email drafts. Because I wasn't going to use it. They were going to fire me. On paper. On record. And the second they did, my attorney would hit send on the severance demand. HR would get a certified notice of retaliation and wrongful termination. And Northridge Freight would receive a signed offer from me, along with a list of 6 Kingsley vendors already ready to switch allegiances. All I had to do now was wait. Let them make the next move. And when they did, I'd bury them in paper. They thought I was alone. That once they stripped me of my title, my office, and my access, I'd vanish quietly like a footnote. What they didn't realize, half the people who actually kept Kingsley Freight running still answered to me. Not by title, by respect. First call I made was to Lance, the regional dispatch lead out of Joliet. Old school, hardworking, knew every route from St. Louis to Detroit better than Google Maps. You staying loyal to Richard? I asked. I'm loyal to whoever made sure my guys got bonuses during COVID, he said. That was you. Second was Emily, head of vendor relations, another Kingsley vet. You're jumping ship, she asked. Only if you're steering the lifeboat with me. She didn't even hesitate. You think Northridge will let me build out my own team? Already in the plan. The third call I didn't have to make. Dev, the VP at Northridge, texted me out of the blue. Just got off the phone with one of your old warehouse guys. He called me asking when you're onboarding. Word's getting out. I told him to hold the door open. Things were about to move. Then I started flipping Claire's circle. Not directly. No threats. No drama. I just made a few anonymous tips. To Kingsley's audit team. Check Claire's travel expense reports. Compare them to Leo's itinerary. Same hotels. Same dates. Might be interesting. To HR. Ask why a third-party consultant like Leo is getting internal access to operations data with no contract on file. And to the board? A simple envelope. No return address. Just a USB drive. Contents? An unredacted copy of the text where Leo says, I'm moving in once her dad cuts him loose. A spreadsheet Claire forwarded to Leo 1 week before I was demoted, detailing our client list, route margins, and vendor rates. Confidential data. Sent from her Kingsley email. All traceable. And I didn't even have to leak it myself. I just made sure the right people discovered it. One by one, the pillars holding their little plan up began to wobble. Claire stopped coming home 3 nights in a row. Said she was working late. Richard canceled 2 meetings and disappeared from the office. Word was the board had questions. Me? I showed up every day. On time. Did my job. Smiled. Because when someone's building their own noose, all you have to do is let them keep pulling the rope. Funny thing about betrayal, it makes people sloppy. Leo thought he was slick. Thought forwarding company emails to his Gmail would go unnoticed. Thought no one would ever notice he'd been CC&G himself on internal memos Claire gave him access to. He was wrong. And it only took one screw-up to give me everything I needed. Friday afternoon. HR sent out a revised org chart company-wide. I wasn't on it anymore. Not even listed in special projects. Just gone. But buried inside that email thread, forwarded to half the leadership team, was a message trail that someone forgot to strip before blasting it out. Leo's name was in there, along with a subject line. Consulting proposal for post Q3 transition. Attached was a PDF. I clicked it. My name was all over it. It was a breakdown of how to redistribute my projects after Phase 1, termination. It detailed the exact day they planned to let me go. It also referenced sensitive financials, some of which had only ever been on the company's internal server, protected by director-level clearance. Leo didn't have that access. Claire did. She'd given it to him. Without legal approval. Without even a signed NDA on file. They gave confidential information to an external party before firing me. That's not just bad business. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. And it got better. Because as I scrolled through the document metadata, I noticed something most people wouldn't think to check. Version history. Inside it was the original draft title. Kingsley Exit Strategy, Mark Replacement Plan, Draft. Written by Claire K. Edited by Leo S. And the last save date? 2 weeks before they moved me into the basement office. That meant they'd been planning this not just behind my back, But before they ever brought it up in private, before Richard said anything, before I was ever officially under review, this was premeditated removal. They thought they could delete the old file, rename it, clean it up, and nobody would know. But they forgot. The system logs everything. And now, I had the digital fingerprints. Proof that Claire, Leo, and Richard colluded to eliminate me before cause existed. That meant no legal cover, no performance review, no HR justification, just straight-up corporate betrayal and data abuse. That night, I forwarded the document trail to my lawyer with a simple subject line. Load the chamber. Then I texted Dev at Northridge. We go live next week. I'm not walking out. They're going to push me. Let them. His reply? Showtime. They thought they were running the show. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, I got the calendar invite. Meeting. Transition planning location. Richard's office. No agenda. No attendees listed. Just me. I wore my best shirt. The one Claire gave me 2 Christmases ago when we still pretended we were in love. Blue. Fitted. Clean. When I walked in, the whole lineup was waiting. Richard at the head of the table. Claire at his right, pretending she wasn't 2 feet deep in betrayal. And Leo standing in the back, arms crossed, wearing a smirk like he'd already won. I didn't sit. Just closed the door behind me and said, "Morning." Richard cleared his throat. "Mark, let's keep this direct. The company's entering a new phase. After review, we've decided your role no longer aligns with our direction." He slid an envelope across the table. Thick. I didn't touch it. Claire jumped in, voice fake soft. "This isn't personal. You've been a steady presence. But the business is evolving." "Cut the script," I said. "You've rehearsed it enough." Leo raised an eyebrow. "Hostile already?" I turned to him. "Leo," I tread lightly, "I know what's in your inbox." His smirk cracked for half a second. Richard straightened his back. "We're offering a 6-month severance package if you sign the NDA today." 6 months? After 12 years? I almost laughed. I pulled out a folder from my inside jacket pocket. Black. Labeled. Clipped tight. "Here's what's actually going to happen," I said. I laid it on the table and slid it toward him. Inside? My full employment contract, highlighting the severance clause, 24 months if terminated without documented costs. A printed email chain showing 0 written warnings. 0 performance flags. Metadata proving the transition plan existed before any review or reassignment. Copies of confidential documents Leo accessed without NDA forwarded from Claire's company account. A pre-filled legal complaint, signed and notarized, but not yet filed. Title: Wrongful Termination and Corporate Conspiracy. The room went still. Claire's face drained. Richard opened the folder. Skimmed. Slowed. Stopped. Leo muttered, "This is ridiculous." "Is it?" I said. "Because that draft proposal Claire sent you on August 14th? The one she renamed? Still exists. Logged. Backed up. Every edit tracked." Richard looked up. "What do you want?" I leaned forward. 2 years severance. Immediate payout. No NDA. And a public resignation statement approved by me. Or. I tapped the folder. "We go to court. And every dirty little detail goes public. I've already sent backup copies to legal. One press leak and this turns into a full-blown shareholder disaster." Silence. Claire looked like she was about to cry, but I wasn't giving her the dignity of sympathy. Richard nodded slowly. "Give us 48 hours. You've got 24. Then I walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't look back. By the time I reached my car, Dev from Northridge had already texted. Paperwork ready. Warehouse space secured. Vendor rollout in motion. And Claire? She sent one last text at 10:23 a.m. "You think you've won?" I didn't reply. Because this wasn't a game. It was a reckoning. They thought I was bluffing. The next morning at 8:05 a.m., my lawyer received confirmation. Kingsley Freight agreed to the full 24-month severance. Lump sum. No NDA. Statement of voluntary transition with glowing language approved by me. By 9:30, the wire cleared. $382,000. They paid it to make me go away. But I wasn't going anywhere. Because the second that money hit, Northridge Freight made their announcement. "We're proud to welcome Mark Caldwell as Regional Director of Operations, Chicago Market Expansion." Included in the post? A photo of me, smiling in front of our new Joliet warehouse. And below it, 6 major supplier tags reposting the news. By noon, 4 of Kingsley's vendors had pulled their contracts. By end of week, 9. I didn't cold call them. Didn't pitch. I just picked up when they reached out. Heard what happened, one said. Kingsley's been sloppy lately, said another. If you're building something, we want in. Then came the client bleed. Conway Steel, Blairwood Plastics, Delphi Chemical, companies I'd serviced for a decade. I knew the dispatch teams by name, the quirks of every route. They didn't call Claire. They called me. One of them texted. We'd rather bet on the guy who built it than the people who stabbed him. Meanwhile, Kingsley spiraled. A leaked HR memo hit the freight industry forum. Board requests internal investigation into misuse of executive access. Leo's name was attached. Claire? Silent. Richard? Rumored to be on medical leave. By week 3, half of Kingsley's shipping lanes had slowed to a crawl. Too many gaps. Too many vendors switching sides. Word was they tried outsourcing dispatch to a third party in Texas. Backfired. Delays. Lost freight. Penalty fees stacking. At Northage? We were humming. Dev let me run the show. Give me a team of 15, full autonomy, and a corner office that didn't smell like betrayal. Every morning, I walked into our new warehouse, past the Kingsley trucks rerouted to us, and felt nothing. No rage. No triumph. Just clarity. They'd built a castle on arrogance. And I walked off with the blueprints. 6 months later, Northage Freight's Chicago division closed the quarter $12.3 million over projection. We absorbed 7 former Kingsley clients. 4 vendors signed exclusive contracts. 2 of Claire's old department heads applied to work under me. I hired one of them. The other? Still too close to the Kingsley name. I had my own office now, real with desk, windows overlooking the trucks I once routed on paper, and a door that only opened when I wanted it to. I didn't post about the success. I didn't flaunt the numbers. But the industry saw it. Richard retired early in January. Claire's consulting firm in River North? Gone before Valentine's Day. Leo disappeared. Word is, he tried launching a logistics app in Miami. Burned investor money in 3 months. I never verified it. Didn't care. Then, one night, while I was reviewing expansion plans, my phone buzzed. Claire. First time I'd heard from her since that day in Richard's office. Hey. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. Just wanted to say I'm sorry. I was wrong about you. About everything. Then, do you ever think about us? I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I locked the phone, turned it face down, finished my coffee. I didn't reply, because here's what I'd learned. When a man's betrayed by his wife and her father, when they fire him, replace him, and expect him to stay quiet, and he still comes out on top, that's not luck. That's clarity. I didn't get revenge. I got free. And that's the kind of when you never have to explain.